listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
If you or your patient struggle with muscle cramps, spasms, soreness, or restless leg syndrome, you're going to want to hear about our non-opioid TheraWorks Relief. TheraWorks Relief is a clinically proven and published locally acting topical solution that prevents and relieves muscle cramps, spasms, and soreness in the legs and feet. In a research study including patients diagnosed with restless leg syndrome, TheraWorks Relief was shown to reduce symptoms commonly associated with accompanying RLS, including muscle cramps and spasms. Muscle cramps are reported as a side effect of hundreds of prescription medications, from intravenous iron sucrose and conjugated estrogens to statins and diuretics. By managing muscle cramps, TheraWorks Relief supports adherence, helping patients stay on important and often life-saving medications. TheraWorks Relief comes in an easy-to-use, fast-absorbing, non-greasy foam that can prevent muscle cramps and spasms with just a few simple applications a day. To learn more about TheraWorks Relief, go to theraworksrelief.com and click on the Healthcare Professional link.
Here's the thing. You're busy. You're a professional. Maybe you're a pharmacist, and you know you're capable of doing more, doing much more, and living a more organized, less stressful, purposeful, and freedom-driven life. Let's talk, let's share, and let's grow together as an industry, as healthcare providers, and as a better unified community. It may seem like some of these things don't easily fit together. After all, what do career coaching, marketing strategy, networking, and pharmacy have in common? Welcome to the RX Buzz. Your host is a pharmacist, a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and a proven motivational career coach, Ashlee Klevens Hayes. This is the RX Buzz Podcast, a collaboration between RX Ashlee and the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Good morning, RX Buzz listeners. Here we are. This is Ashlee from RX Ashlee, and today I have an awesome guest with me today. Her and I met over, of course, like many of my other guests, on a social media platform, and I've been following her. Sorry, not to be totally creepy. I've been following you for a while now, I think a couple years, and I have Coach Christie Shefchunas with me. Say that last name 10 times fast. And Christen, it's just super fun to have you with me. I want to take a moment to just thank you. I know you're super busy and really, really, really big deal these days. So I appreciate you being with me.
Oh, thank you. I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's really cool to meet interesting people outside of our arena who are doing inspiring, motivational, just awesome, overall positive things for our not just my profession, but just globally for athletes and for non-athletes. So with that said, why don't you take a couple minutes to introduce kind of what you do and who you are?
Okay. Well, let's see. I come from the swimming world. I come from the sports world, I should say. I was a swimmer, swam in college. And then when I got out of college, I started my coaching career. Do you want me to go through the universities I worked at and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, how about it? We got to give you some street cred. So
okay, so I spent 2 years as a club coach in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from, actually. And then I went to Michigan State and spent 2 years as an assistant coach. Then I went to SMU in Dallas. I was there for 4 years as an assistant coach. And then in 2006, I became the head coach at the University of Miami in Florida. I was there for 7 years. What I realized those first few years, my time at Miami, I always say the only word that can describe my time there is tumultuous. I failed miserably my first 4 years, started to figure things out, started putting mentors and coaches around me to figure out, who I am as a leader. Really started doing great things my last 3 years. But the problem is, we all know in failure, even though it's awful and it hurts and it's disappointing and embarrassing, it's also some of the biggest growth in your life.
Sure.
And so what I realized is it wasn't necessarily the swimming that I was so passionate about. It was really the confidence piece, helping people pass their doubts and their fears. And so in 2013, I took a huge risk and stepped down. I resigned to start my own business, Coach Christen. About a year into it, as it's not taking off the way I want to, right before my mental breakdown, I got a call from a man who became the head Olympic coach in Rio for the women's swim team. He was coaching a group of national team and Olympians. There were 17 of them. And so I went and helped him out for about a year, getting them ready for the Rio Olympic Games. Then came back to my business, and I work one-on-one with female athletes. And then I also speak to athletes, coaches, and businesses.
So, oh my gosh, so many questions. First of all, so cool. It's not every day that I get to talk to interesting, non-professionals. So I think what you're doing is fascinating. Going back to kind of, you open the floodgates here of what do you consider failure? Because you talked about your Florida experience and how the first couple of years you didn't think it went well, or you said it yourself that you failed. So I'm just curious, how did that look for you? Because and the reason why I ask is because last week I had a question from a student in front of like 300 people asking me if I've ever failed. And I was like, sure. Do you want to pull up a chair? I mean, we're doing that all day. So what does that mean to you?
Well, as I always, tell everybody, I think failure, everybody has a different definition of it. I could see an athlete do something and I'm like, wow, that was really good. And they're like, no, because I had expectations for myself and I failed. So I think it's different for everybody, but my time in Miami, what I did was, let me say this. When I was at SMU, we were one of the top programs in the country. And it worked so well because the head coach just kind of thought he was the sportsman. He thought swimming 24/7, where I took care of the women. I took care of their confidence. I took care of life outside of sport, because we all know it affects sport business as well, right?
Sure.
And so I always say that time, the reason we had so much success is because he took care of the swimming and I took care of the women. So when I became a head coach, now I felt like I needed to change who I was. I needed to take care of the swimming, and I needed to hire somebody to take care of the women. And I'm embarrassed to say it took me 4 years to realize it was not working. And, part of success for me is not just them swimming fast, but helping them become amazing women, helping them become amazing people after college. And I wasn't doing that because I was so focused on the swimming part and depending on other people who didn't have the gifts that I had to take care of the women. So, like I said, when I started, let me say this, after 4 years of failing, I stopped blaming everybody else, right? Because that's what we do as humans. We blame everybody else and everything else. I started to look at myself. And when I started doing that, of course, I only started doing that because I surrounded myself by mentors and coaches that made me do that. It wasn't pretty. And I realized that I was using none of my gifts because I was trying to be what I thought a head coach should be instead of just being me. Wow. And that's why we had the success my last 3 years that we did, is because I started, even though it didn't look like other head coaches out there, I started using my gifts and brought in assistants who were really good and passionate about the swimming part.
This is so fascinating because there's so many correlations between the professional business world, non-athleticism, that correlate. I'm thinking immediately right now with some of the people I work one-on-one with. So when you go to different schools or different camps and you talk to the athletes now, what do you talk about?
Well, my main focus is confidence, but I can't talk about confidence until I talk about doubts and fears.
Okay.
How to move past, those doubts and fears.
So you're saying athletes have doubts and fears?
Even the ones with Olympic gold medals around their necks.
Michael Phelps has doubts and fears. My heart
Michael's a little different.
I'm just kidding.
But yes, absolutely. I mean, and we've seen, in the last 2 years, he's really come out, about his mental health and his struggles and things like that. So absolutely.
So when you're talking to them, I mean, it's just so fascinating to me because we glorify all of these big athletes, and not just swimming. I mean, all of these athletes. And then we glorify the big name CEOs and the movie stars and physicians and, these people who have quote the titles of holy moly, but these people struggle too. You're seeing it in a different capacity than when I'm seeing it. But so what is life like for an athlete who's struggling before they talk about confidence versus after?
Well, it's really what I've come to the conclusion of is, confidence can come when you really have nothing left to hide. Sure. So when you start getting honest about those fears and doubts, because what we do so often is we sit there and have doubts and fears. And let me say this, what I've learned about fear is everyone experiences it, but everyone also thinks they're the only one experiencing it. Mm-hmm. So it's never talked about because we think, oh my God, I'm the only one. Something's wrong with me. I'm a weakling, and so we're embarrassed and we never talk about it. But what I'm realizing is everybody is struggling. But I even think back to my college career and I remember, as a swimmer standing behind the blocks and there's 8 swimmers there. And I remember thinking the 7 other women standing, getting ready to race are fearless. What's wrong with me that I'm not? And now I'm realizing, that everybody struggles. It's just those that finally admit it and find a way to move forward from it, that can be confident, getting ready. But, we've talked a million times about in those moments before competition, when those fears and doubts come, all it is pressure to perform. Mm-hmm. And I believe that if there is pressure to perform, you are going to have doubts and you are going to have fears. Across the board, like I said, I work with a lot more women than I do men, but mm-hmm. like I said, I've never met anybody that is fearless. And like I said, and I've worked with the ones with Olympic gold medals, hanging around their necks. So it's really about, okay, let's get honest about those doubts and fears. And then let's figure out how to move forward from them, because I'm a believer that if there is pressure, they're coming. So sure. instead of pretending they're not there, let's face them and find a way to move forward.
I mean, majority of the people that you work with, I'm assuming, are fairly young. I mean, really young athletes, right?
No, I don't work with anybody under 13 or 14. I don't know what's really young.
Well, I'm sorry. Okay, so I work with, I guess my question is can someone identify that they're fearful at the age of 18, 20?
Oh, absolutely.
And then they work through that issue. And then what's the rate of success afterwards? I mean, I wish I had someone like you when I was 18.
Well, tell me about it. I wish I did too, because I have no doubt that I never reached my full potential. And it was, because of fear. But, this is the way I explain it. The reason I don't work with like really young people is because they haven't experienced enough failure to really understand fear. Because I always say, in the swimming world, I always say, when you're 8 years old and every time you step up on the blocks to swim, you go a best time, right? And then one day you don't go at best time, and there's nothing to be afraid of. But then that moment that you don't go a best time, the next time you step up on the blocks, there's a new question that has entered the equation, and it is, what if that happens again?
Wow.
So when you are that young, you just haven't experienced enough failure to have that fear of,
for the most part,
what if I do it again?
I mean, that's really young. I'm saying even the Olympians who are so young, I mean, 18, they're in college.
Oh, yeah.
So how does that look? I mean, they're physically, obviously, brilliant, physically in shape. And then when it comes down to the mindset, do they turn to you for support, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, what I used to do when I started speaking and stuff is I would have athletes write down what they were thinking right before competition. And to be honest with you, like the first time that I did that, my first response was, I want to bawl my eyes out because I couldn't believe the terror. I couldn't believe the terror that was written, that was written down. And then I wanted to blame the coaches, like what are these coaches doing that are making these people so afraid? But then as I started doing it, everywhere that I went and they started writing it down, 99.9% of the time. And by the way, I'd have them write it down anonymously because I knew if they put their name on it, they wouldn't be as honest.
Right.
But 99.9% of the time, it's the exact same stuff. It's terror. If there is pressure to perform, there's terror. Because what if I don't? What if I fail? What if I mess up? What if I embarrass myself?
Right.
I mean, there's just so many of those what ifs that pop into our mind in those moments.
This is fascinating to me because one of the services that I offer in our business is interview preparation. And it has been so humbling for me. I have high energy, highly educated, highly intelligent, highly motivated people who get interviews, who come to me for support. And it's fascinating to see them experience this preparation because within the first 5-15 minutes, they're nervous. They don't know how to articulate. They don't know how to talk about their experiences. They don't know how to talk about themselves. And then by the end of the second hour, the end of the third hour, I mean, they're totally transparent, totally different person. They are the person that they look like on paper. So I'm just seeing this huge correlation right now with what we see on TV or what we hear about in the news from athletes performing on stage or in the water or whatever it is on the field versus to a business professional or to a professional, someone like on my end, who they need to perform in interviews. It's fascinating to me, this correlation. We should write a book.
Absolutely.
I mean,
let's do it.
So interesting to me that it's the same exact thing, but yet professionals tend to be really more reliant in what I'm gathering, and maybe this is inaccurate, but and let me know what your thoughts are on this. Professionals tend to be a little bit more reserved and hesitant to ask for help in the sense of confidence building. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But again, I think so many people are afraid to admit that they're struggling.
Yeah.
But the problem is that everybody is, I mean, I mean, everybody is. It's such a journey. And, to reach your goals, to move up the ladder, whatever that looks like for you, to find success. I mean, you cannot do it alone. You've got to surround yourself, by people that are going to push you and cheer you on, but at the same time, be brutally honest with you about things, that you need to hear, that you don't really want to hear, but you need to hear.
Yeah. I've experienced a lot of that, which is good though.
Oh gosh, it's changed my life.
Me too. In fact, my business coach came down pretty hard on me this week. She was like, you need to fix all of this. We launched a course, and first time around, just in full transparency to my audience, it was not good.
Yeah.
Like, you got to fix all of this. I was like, okay. And the outcome of it, I think, has been very successful. And I love that. I love being pushed.
Oh yeah. I think people are just afraid, to really look at themselves honestly, and it's like, but once you do, the freedom, of being able to be just an open book. Look, this is who I am. This is my mess in the past. This is my mess today. And being honest and open about it. But honestly, like, that is my definition of confidence. Like, having nothing to hide and just being truly 100%. Hey, this is me. It ain't pretty sometimes, but this is who I am, and I'm proud of it.
How do you coach them to break through, the fears of being judged of who they are?
There are some, it's such a range. I mean, because there are some people that they come in and it's just like, there's nothing that even needs to be said. They're just ready for change. And so they will just vomit the truth, and there are other people where it just takes it takes a long time. And I will say, I think one of my gifts is just really relating and making people feel like, oh, wait a second, I'm not alone. And I'm also, I am an open book. So you are going to hear my junk. You are going to hear my failures. And that really gives people the freedom, I think, to really get honest about theirs. But if they're not willing, I feel like I create, a good enough relationship with somebody, or a relatable enough relationship with somebody, that I can say things that if you don't have a relationship with that person, they're not going to listen. But if you create a relationship with that person and you say something that they don't really want to hear, they'll listen.
Wow. So where did you get that? Where do you think this all came from? Do you think this is your innate gift from God, or do you think that you learned this?
I think that I do, it is one of my gifts, but at the same time, I coached for 16 years, and I would watch these athletes with so much potential, and so much talent, and they never reached it, because of their doubts and their fears, or because of life outside of sport that was totally jacking up sport, So I think it's just 16 years of being able to, because when I create a relationship with somebody, I don't do surface level, I go deep. And so I've been in the souls of these athletes. I've seen the dark stuff that they won't show anybody else, that they're embarrassed about. So I feel like that has been such a gift in what I do now, is because they've allowed me into the dark places, and I've seen it. And I'm so thankful that they've allowed me, because I don't feel alone when I go into my own dark places.
Sure. When you go and give presentations or speeches at, is it universities or, conferences that you put on, what are your themes?
My themes?
Yeah. What do you love to talk about with them? What lights their heart on fire mostly?
Yeah. To be honest with you, when I speak, like I said, I cannot talk about confidence without talking about doubts and fears. And so that's always the first thing that I talk about. And just, I share a story, and just them knowing that they're not the only ones with those thoughts. There are tears out there, because it's such a relief to know, oh my gosh, the hero that I see on TV with a gold medal around her neck, she has the same fears as me. I'm not a weakling. There isn't anything wrong with me. It is such a relief to know. That's what I always say when Missy Franklin, who's a 5-time Olympic gold medalist, the first time she heard me speak, because I really talk about owning, your fears and doubts. So one of the things I say is, I'm afraid, and that's okay. I'm nervous, and that's okay. And she said, I want to stand on a mountaintop and scream it out. I'm afraid, and it's okay. It doesn't make me a weakling. It doesn't make me a misfit. It doesn't mean something's wrong with me. I'm afraid, and it's actually okay. And then after that, we go into, okay, once you admit what those fears are, the what ifs that I call them, how do we move forward from them? And there's some steps that I go through with them to help them move forward from them. And then the next part of the piece is, okay, how do we start building confidence? Because I think so many people, especially women, we believe that we can get confidence from somebody else. So if my coach validates me, if he says good job, if my boyfriend does this, we think we can gain confidence from other people, but absolutely not. We can be validated, we can be told, hey, good job, but we cannot gain confidence from anybody else. That is our responsibility and ours alone.
Right. Wow. So it's funny that you bring up the subject of, being vulnerable and being open, because one of the ways I connected with you is I bought one of your bracelets.
Yes.
And it's the orange one with the gold bead on it, and it represents I'm bold. And over the past year, or maybe a couple of years now that I launched this business and my coaching business, I've worn it, and a lot of people have told me, wow, Ashlee, you're so courageous for doing something like this. And it's just funny to me that people say that. it's interesting to me because I am no different than anyone else. I'm doing it. So when I'm doing the thing. So
Sure.
when I'm sure when swimmers or when athletes come to you, what is the difference between the people who get it, who have the breakthrough, the people who don't?
Well,
I think the reason why I'm relating to that is because I think I just had the breakthrough and I'm just doing the thing. So what do you think for those athletes?
It's risking failure. It's risking failure. I mean, that is what it's all about. Finding the courage and risking failure. You know, Nick Saban, I saw a quote of his the other day, and he's like, you know, greatness is not normal, or, you know, doing above and beyond is not normal. Like survival mode is normal. Like that average is normal. So, you know, doing the extras, risking failure, things like that, that's not ordinary. That's extraordinary. But most people will not come out of their comfort zones, because if I do, I may fail. Mm-hmm. And then what does that say about me? What are other people going to think? That's a huge one. What are other people going to think if I risk and then I fail? So absolutely, all of it is just, how do I move forward when those fears and doubts come? How do I risk failure anyway?
Sure. Wow.
Absolutely.
Powerful stuff. How do you work through all this stuff?
Well, and then let me say this, because failure, like I said, once you fail, then, you know, a new question enters the equation of what if it happens again? And that has kept people stuck as well, because they're afraid to move forward. But I think that so many people, because failure is so embarrassing and nobody wants to talk about it, they don't. And I feel like when we fail and we try to move forward from it without talking about it, without dealing with it, it becomes pretty much like an anchor inside of us. And we go to take a step forward into our potential, and we can't move because we haven't dealt with it. So failure, the reason people don't want to risk failure is because failure is terrible. I mean, it's awful. It hurts. It's embarrassing, you know, but those that do risk learning how to handle that failure after it happens, because there is no way that you are getting to where you want to be. There's no way you're climbing the ladder. There is no way you're getting to whatever success is for you without hitting failures along the way. And if we don't learn how to handle those failures when they come, we will stay exactly where we are.
Oh, gosh, preach. Yeah, I mean, what a powerful sentiment you provided us. So, okay, when are you speaking next? Can I come? What is your travel schedule? I mean, so what do you do? Are you traveling every week, every month to go give presentations? Working with one-on-one clients?
I mean, to be honest with you, because a lot of the places that I do speak are, athletics, it really revolves around the athletic schedule. So I just went 2 months straight of, nonstop, but I only have one more, until the end of the year. So it's really different, but, throwing the businesses in there now too, that has been so exciting for me, because, to just have that complete, I mean, it's exactly the same thing, exactly the same thing. So that's been really exciting for me too.
That's awesome. If someone wants to get a hold of you, how I can put it in the show notes, but how can they get a hold of you or maybe follow you on social media?
Yeah, well, my website is Coach Christen, CHRISTEN.com. My Instagram, which I do most of my stuff on, is Coach_Christen.
And I love your Instagram.
Oh, thank you. It's just, some motivating stuff.
Yeah, it's good though. It's good stuff.
Thank you. And then the bracelets that we were talking about, I call them confidence nuggets. So it's confidencenuggets.com. There's a video on there that kind of explains the whole background on why I came up with them.
I really just love what you are practicing, and I love what your philosophies. I think it takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing. And I think you are risking failure in being an entrepreneur. So I understand that, and I respect that. If there's anything I can ever do in my little small business world, I would love to support you in every endeavor possible, because I think more people need to hear what you're saying in order to reach their true optimal level of success. And everyone defines success differently, but I think getting through those breakthroughs and those barriers are something that will prevent someone from ultimately becoming whatever their definition of success really means.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Christen, you are awesome. I love
you.
speaking with you. I love speaking with people exactly like you. Let's keep in touch, and I'm sure the audience will really appreciate your sentiments this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm amazed at what you're doing too. So, and if you need anything, 100% in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, RX Buzz listeners, thanks so much for chiming in. And I mean, if you guys love Christen just as much as I do, make sure you guys give us a shout out on our reviews or message me and let me know what you think. Let me know if this resonated with you. Let me know your thoughts. I am going to be pulling more people just like Christen on our show, because to be totally transparent, not enough people are talking about this in our world. So I appreciate you guys listening. And as always, I am grateful for the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I am grateful for Todd and Michael for facilitating this show. And the audience, you guys are the best. Have a great day. Take care.
This was just the beginning. If this was your first time listening to the RX Buzz, we welcome you and thank you for giving us a chance. And if you're an old friend, one of our subscribers, we cherish you and look forward to hearing from you. And now, we need your help. We ask that you share this podcast with just one person you know who's in the healthcare industry. If this podcast can help just one person, we believe it will have a chain reaction, having an impact on dozens, hundreds, thousands, and someday, millions of people. Thank you for your help. We truly appreciate you. And thank you for listening to the RX Buzz, part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network.